2:52 p.m., January 13, 2026. Strait of Hormuz. 18 nautical miles north of the Omani coastline. International waters. Bright afternoon sun. Sea state, calm. Visibility, excellent. Surface temperature, 24 degrees Celsius. USS Carney, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, conducting routine freedom of navigation operations. Displacement, 9,200 tons. Crew, 323. Mission profile, enforcing international maritime law in one of the world's most contested choke points. At 2:52 p.m., the ships and Spy 1D radar detected multiple surface contacts accelerating from Iranian territorial waters near Qeshm Island. Range, 14 miles. Speed, increasing rapidly. 14 vessels. Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy fast attack craft. Within 90 seconds, the formation split into 3 groups. Flanking maneuver, coordinated approach vectors, weapons visible on deck. This wasn't harassment. This wasn't a close pass. At 2:54 p.m., the lead Iranian vessel, IRGCN 221, broke from formation and accelerated to 52 knots, aiming directly at Carney's port side. On its deck, crew manning a Chinese-supplied C-704 anti-ship missile launcher. Range to target, 6 miles and closing. Commander Lisa Graves, Carney's commanding officer, transmitted verbal warnings over bridge-to-bridge radio. 3 warnings. English and Farsi. Each one ignored. At 2:56 p.m., IRGCN 221 locked fire control radar on Carney. This wasn't a drill. Commander Graves' voice over tactical net, cold and precise. Weapons hold broken. We are being painted. All hands to battle stations. At 2:57 p.m., the Iranian vessel launched. A single C-704 anti-ship missile, trailing white smoke, lifted off the deck and accelerated toward Carney at 620 miles per hour. Time to impact, 41 seconds. They made 4 fatal mistakes. They assumed one missile could mission kill a U.S. destroyer. They believed the rest of the fleet would scatter or retreat. They thought Tehran's political cover would prevent American retaliation beyond self-defense. And they had no idea what was already tracking them from above, below, and across the horizon. What happened in the next 47 minutes didn't just stop an attack. It delivered a message Tehran would never forget. This is that story. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. 30% of the world's seaborne petroleum passes through daily. Iran's northern shore. Oman's southern coast. Between them, the global economy's most vulnerable artery. For 5 years, the IRGC Navy had conducted escalating harassment campaigns, close intercepts, mock attacks, weapons locks without launch. Provocations calculated to remain below the threshold of armed conflict. But launching an anti-ship missile at a U.S. warship crossed every line. That wasn't harassment. That was war. Iran's calculation was clear. If the missile hit, claim self-defense, flood the media with propaganda, rally domestic support, and dare Washington to escalate. If the missile missed, claim a warning shot, and retreat into political ambiguity. Tehran assumed Carney would be too damaged to respond or too cautious to retaliate. They were catastrophically wrong. If this truth needs to reach people, hit that like button right now. 2:57 p.m. Aboard Carney, the Combat Information Center erupted in controlled chaos. Radar operators tracked the inbound missile. Automated defense systems spun to life. The AN/SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite activated countermeasures, chaff and electronic jamming, attempting to spoof the missile's guidance system. Didn't work. The C-704 stayed locked. At 2:57 p.m. and 23 seconds, Carney's Phalanx CIWS, a radar-guided 20mm Gatling gun capable of firing 4,500 rounds per minute, acquired the target. Range, 1.2 miles. At 2:57 p.m. and 31 seconds, the Phalanx opened fire. Tungsten rounds streaked across the water in a concentrated stream. The C-704, traveling at Mach 0.9, flew directly into the defensive cone. Impact. The missile disintegrated 400 meters from Carney's hull. Debris rained into the sea. Shockwave rocked nearby fishing vessels. No damage to the destroyer. But the line had been crossed. At 2:58 p.m., Commander Graves transmitted emergency flash traffic to U.S. 5th Fleet Command, Bahrain, and CENTCOM, MacDill Air Force Base, Florida. Message content: Carney engaged. Anti-ship missile launched by IRGCN. Missile intercepted. Requesting immediate strike authorization. Multiple hostile contacts still inbound. Response time from Vice Admiral Kenneth Marsh, Commander of U.S. Naval Forces Central Command. 9 seconds. Carney, you are weapons free. Neutralize all hostile vessels. Additional assets inbound. Execute. At the same moment, encrypted alerts hit every U.S. asset within 600 miles. The response net activated. Drop the word retaliation in the comments if you know what's coming. 2:59 p.m. The 14 Iranian vessels didn't retreat. They accelerated. IRGCN 221, the vessel that launched the missile, circled back for a second attack run. Behind it, 6 more boats armed with RPGs, heavy machine guns, and additional missile systems closed to within 4 miles of Carney. At 3 p.m., Carney responded. The destroyer's Mk-45 5-inch deck gun, capable of firing 20 rounds per minute with precision GPS guidance, opened fire. The first salvo targeted IRGCN 221. 3 rounds fired in rapid succession. The first shell struck the Iranian boat's bridge. The second penetrated the hull below the waterline. The third detonated the missile launcher still mounted on deck. IRGCN 221 exploded. Fire consumed the wreckage. The vessel listed violently, then capsized. Survivors in the water, 11. The rest, gone. At 3:01 p.m., 2 more Iranian boats closed from the north, attempting a flanking maneuver. Carney's Mk-38 Mod 225mm chain guns, automated, radar-directed, locked both vessels and fired. Armor-piercing rounds tore through fiberglass hulls, ignited fuel tanks, shredded engines. Both boats dead in the water within 40 seconds. Crews abandoned ship. 11 Iranian vessels remained. And they still didn't retreat. At 3:02 p.m. the cavalry arrived. Carney had never been alone. 380 miles southeast, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower carrier strike group had been operating in the Gulf of Oman under emissions control. Total radio silence, radar minimized, invisible to Iranian surveillance. At 2:58 p.m. strike elements launched. 8F divided by a -18E divided by F Super Hornets, already armed and on 5-minute alert, catapulted off Eisenhower's deck in pairs. Loadout: AGM-84 Harpoon anti-ship missiles, AM-120 AMRAAM air-to-air missiles, and 20mm cannon ammunition. Time to engagement zone, 7 minutes. From Al Dhafra Air Base, United Arab Emirates, 190 miles southwest, 4 F-35A Lightning II stealth fighters launched. Weapons bays loaded with GBU-39 small-diameter bombs and AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles. Mission: suppress Iranian coastal defenses and destroy any follow-on threats. From Al Udeid Air Base, Qatar, 2 B-1B Lancer strategic bombers, already airborne on pre-planned deterrence patrol over the Arabian Peninsula, altered course. Each bomber carried 24 AGM-158 JSSM cruise missiles. Range: 575 miles. They didn't need to enter Iranian airspace. At 3:04 p.m., Carney transmitted updated targeting data to all inbound strike packages. Real-time coordinates for every Iranian vessel. Priority: eliminate all hostile contacts before they could launch additional missiles. The Iranian boats had nowhere to hide. Type yes if every target deserves elimination. 3:06 p.m. The remaining 11 Iranian vessels attempted to scatter. Some turned northeast, racing back toward Keshem Island and the protection of coastal defenses. Others headed west, trying to reach Iranian territorial waters near Bandar Abbas. 3 boats pushed south, attempting to flee into Omani waters. None of them made it. At 3:07 p.m., the first F/A-18 Super Hornets arrived overhead. Strike Element Alpha, 4 aircraft led by Commander Jake Havoc Reynolds, descended to 12,000 feet and locked targets. Each Super Hornet carried 2 AGM-84 Harpoon missiles. Reynolds' voice over tactical frequency: Magnum, Magnum, Magnum. 8 Harpoon missiles launched in staggered sequence. Each missile, 488 pounds of high explosive. Sea-skimming approach at 537 miles per hour. Active radar homing in terminal phase. At 3:08 p.m. the Harpoons struck. 8 Iranian vessels, patrol boats, fast attack craft, armed trawlers, exploded almost simultaneously. Fireballs erupted across the strait. Debris scattered across square kilometers of ocean. Secondary explosions as onboard ammunition detonated. Smoke plumes visible from the Omani coast 20 miles away. 3 Iranian boats remained. At 3:09 p.m., Those three attempted a desperate final sprint toward Bandar Abbas Naval Base, 28 miles northeast. Maximum speed. No weapons fired. Pure survival mode. Carney launched two RGM-84 Harpoon missiles from its own vertical launch system. Flight time, 96 seconds. At 3:11 p.m. both missiles impacted. Two more Iranian boats obliterated. Wreckage sinking rapidly. One vessel left. The sole surviving Iranian boat, IRGCN 407, transmitted frantic surrender calls on open frequencies. Crew waving white fabric. Engine stopped. Drifting. Commander Graves authorized Omani Coast Guard vessels, already en route, to take custody. The Iranian crew, 14 personnel, were detained within 20 minutes. But the response wasn't over. If communities need to understand what really happened, share this video now. 3:13 p.m. Tehran had launched the attack from the strait. Washington's response would reach Tehran. The four F-35 Lightning IIs from Al-Dhafra penetrated Iranian airspace at 45,000 feet, stealth profiles active, completely invisible to IRGC air defense radars. Target packages, command and control nodes directly linked to the naval attack. Not civilian infrastructure. Not symbolic targets. Surgical elimination of the decision-makers who ordered the strike. 3 targets identified by U.S. intelligence over the preceding 6 months. Target 1, IRGC Naval Command Center, Bandar Abbas. Underground facility, reinforced concrete, communications hub for all Gulf operations. Target 2, Keshem Island IRGC Coordination Site. Logistics node, weapons storage, planning center for fast attack craft operations. Target 3, IRGC Intelligence Facility, Southern Tehran Suburbs. Strategic planning cell responsible for authorizing high-risk operations like the Carney attack. At 3:15 p.m., the F-35s released their payloads. 12 GBU-39 small-diameter bombs. GPS-guided. Precision within 3 meters. Each bomb, 250 pounds, designed to penetrate hardened structures with minimal collateral damage. At 3:17 p.m. the bombs hit Bandar Abbas Naval Command Center. 4 direct impacts. The facility's roof collapsed inward. Communications arrays destroyed. Backup generators obliterated. Fire consumed 3 floors. Keshem Island site, 3 bombs, overlapping strikes. Weapons storage detonated in massive secondary explosions. The entire compound, spanning 4 acres, was leveled. Smoke visible from space. Tehran Intelligence Facility, 5 precision strikes. The building, a nondescript office complex, imploded floor by floor. Structural collapse contained within the target perimeter. Civilian casualties in adjacent buildings, 0. At 3:19 p.m., the 2 B-1B Lancers, still 340 miles from Iranian airspace, launched 12 AGM-158 JSSM cruise missiles targeting IRGC radar installations and coastal missile batteries along the Strait of Hormuz. The missiles flew low, terrain-hugging profiles, avoiding detection until terminal phase. At 3:27 p.m., the JASSM struck. 6 Iranian coastal radar sites, destroyed. SA-15 and SA-6 surface-to-air missile batteries, obliterated. C-802 anti-ship missile launchers positioned near Bandar Abbas, eliminated. Iran's ability to threaten shipping in the strait was erased in 8 minutes. Drop destroyed if you see what just happened. 3:32 p.m. In Tehran, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei convened an emergency meeting of the Supreme National Security Council. Secure communications with IRGC Naval Command, severed. Coastal defenses, silent. Satellite imagery, supplied by Russian intelligence within 40 minutes, showed the devastation. 14 naval vessels destroyed. 3 command centers obliterated. Coastal defense networks neutralized. Personnel casualties. Estimated 340 killed, 97 wounded. And the U.S. had suffered 0 losses. Iranian state media went silent. No breaking news. No heroic narratives. No footage of defending the homeland. For 7 hours, Tehran said nothing. At 10:19 p.m. local time, a brief statement from the Foreign Ministry condemned disproportionate American aggression and claimed only defensive positions were targeted in a limited exchange. Satellite photos released by open-source analysts within 90 minutes told a different story. Burned scars, wreckage fields, collapsed structures. 14 ships at the bottom of the strait. The numbers were staggering. Iranian losses. Naval vessels destroyed, 14. IRGC command facilities destroyed, 3. Coastal defense systems eliminated, 8. Personnel Kia, 340. Prisoners, 14. U.S. losses. Ships damaged, 0. Aircraft lost, 0. Personnel casualties, 0. Ordnance expended, 53 precision-guided munitions. By 3:39 p.m., 47 minutes after the first missile launch, the engagement was over. Global reaction was immediate. In Moscow, the Kremlin issued a perfunctory statement calling for de-escalation, but offered no condemnation of U.S. actions. Russian military analysts quietly noted the speed and precision of the response. No support for Tehran materialized. In Beijing, the foreign ministry called for restraint, but avoided any mention of Iran's initial attack. Chinese state media buried the story after one news cycle. Across the Gulf, U.S. allies, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, privately expressed relief. The IRGC swarming tactics had menaced their own waters for years. Seeing them obliterated in under an hour recalibrated regional threat assessments. In Europe, NATO members acknowledged the engagement as defensive and declined to criticize Washington's response. Iran was isolated. Tehran had gambled that one missile could trigger hesitation, diplomatic paralysis, and international pressure on the U.S. to de-escalate. Instead, they received overwhelming, synchronized, multi-domain retaliation that dismantled their naval capabilities and command structure in 47 minutes. The deeper lesson was strategic. Iran's leadership had convinced themselves that U.S. reluctance to start a regional war would prevent decisive response. They believed international opinion, oil market concerns, and fear of escalation would limit American retaliation to verbal condemnation. They were wrong on every count. What Carney and the follow-on strikes demonstrated wasn't just military capability, it was political will. The willingness to respond to an act of war with immediate, overwhelming force, not as escalation but as deterrence. The calculus for every adversary watching shifted. Launching a missile at a U.S. warship doesn't result in negotiations. It results in destruction. But the risk had been real. If Carney had been hit, if American sailors had died, if Iranian coastal defenses had shot down even one U.S. aircraft, the escalation ladder was right there. Full-scale conflict was minutes away. 47 minutes prevented it, and ended it. Final timeline. 2:52 p.m., IRGCN vessels approach USS Carney. 2:57 p.m., Iranian anti-ship missile launched. 2:58 p.m., missile intercepted. Strike authorization granted. 3 p.m., Carney opens fire. 3 Iranian boats destroyed. 3:07 p.m., F divided by a -18s arrive. 8 more boats eliminated. 3:11 p.m., last hostile vessel neutralized. 3:17 p.m., IRGC command centers destroyed. 3:27 p.m., coastal defenses obliterated. 3:39 p.m., mission complete. Tehran in shock. 47 minutes. 14 vessels destroyed. 3 command centers eliminated. 0 American losses. Iran didn't launch a warning shot. They launched an act of war. And they learned the cost. Hit that like button. Drop your reaction in the comments. What would you have done differently? Subscribe because the next thread is already forming and you'll want to see how it ends. 2:52 p.m. They thought one missile would be enough. 3:39 p.m. Tehran learned otherwise.